Let me tell you something that happened inside Formula One this week, something that the mainstream broadcasters glossed straight over. A two-time world champion. One of the greatest drivers in the history of this sport. Fernando Alonso. Cannot drive more than 25 laps. Not because of tires. Not because of fuel. Because the vibrations inside his car are so violent, so extreme, that he says his hands go completely numb. And if he pushes through it? His team principal says he risks permanent nerve damage. That team principal, by the way, is Adrian Newey, the most celebrated engineering mind Formula One has ever produced. Now, while Aston Martin is fighting to keep their drivers safe, Ferrari arrived at Melbourne with a piece of technology so advanced, so deliberately hidden from rival eyes, that Red Bull has had engineers working overnight shifts trying to figure out how it works. And I'm going to show you exactly what that technology does, and why it's quietly rewriting the 2026 championship before a single points lap has been run. But here's what I need you to understand first, and this is the part that changes everything about how you watch Sunday's race. Stay with me to the end. Because the prediction I'm going to give you, backed by real data, real sources, real engineering, is one you will not hear anywhere else. Let's go. Let's start here. Because this is the biggest story at Melbourne, and it's being massively underreported. Aston Martin's AMR26 has a problem. Not a "we need to develop the car" problem. Not a "the setup isn't right" problem. A fundamental, structural engineering crisis. Adrian Newey confirmed it directly at the Albert Park press conference Thursday morning. I'm quoting him word for word. Fernando is of the feeling that he can't do more than 25 laps consecutively before he will risk permanent nerve damage to his hands. Lance is of the opinion he can't do more than 15 laps. 15 laps. The Australian Grand Prix is 58 laps long. And Lance Stroll, the man who actually sits inside this car, described the feeling with 3 words. He said it's like being electrocuted in an electric chair. That's not a journalist's description. That's the driver. Now let me explain the actual physics, because your competitor channels just throw that quote out there and move on. We're not doing that. Under the 2026 FIA Technical Regulations Article 5, teams must rely far more on electrical output than the combustion engine. When the ICE produces less torque, the MGUK, think of it as the car's electric boost motor, fires stronger, faster energy bursts through the drivetrain. Those bursts create torsional vibrations, the drivetrain twists with such force, the shockwave travels through the entire chassis. And carbon fiber, the material that makes up the entire survival cell, has virtually zero damping ability. It doesn't absorb vibration. It amplifies it. Like a tuning fork pressed against a wine glass at the exact matching frequency. The glass doesn't bend. It shatters. Now here's the number that tells you how serious this actually is. Aston Martin arrived in Melbourne with just 4 spare Honda battery packs. According to reporting by the Race and Autosport, 2 are already gone, destroyed by vibration-induced cell degradation before the race weekend even started. Lithium-ion cells are acutely sensitive to oscillating frequencies. The packs are failing from the inside out. If a third fails this weekend, 1 car is done. Not retiring from contact. Just done. Compare this to Red Bull powertrains, who also recorded minor vibration stress in testing, but had completed full race simulation dyno cycles before arriving. They understand their limits. Aston Martin, who completed the fewest laps of any team in pre-season testing, does not. And this isn't just a race weekend problem. Under 2026 component regulations, teams are limited on power unit elements for the full season. Every failed battery Aston Martin replaces adds penalties. They could enter mid-season already carrying a 10-place grid deficit, before they've found a single tenth of performance. Michael Schmidt of Automotor UND Sport projects the fix at a minimum 2 months. That's races 1 through 5 potentially written off. Now tell me, do you think this is a Honda failure? Or an Aston Martin chassis resonance problem? Because the paddock is split. One comment under a competitor's video this week said it perfectly, and I'll read it to you exactly as written. Adrian Newey proving that while he is a brilliant engineer, there is a reason he's never been a team principal before. Running the whole team is different from running your department. That's a real fan. And honestly? That's a fair point. Drop your answer in the comments right now, Honda's fault or Newey's chassis? I'll be reading every single one. While Aston Martin is in crisis, Ferrari is doing the opposite. They arrived at Melbourne with something so carefully guarded, so deliberately kept out of competitor sightlines, that engineers are calling it the most significant aerodynamic innovation since Mercedes' dual-axis steering in 2020. Let me break it down. Under the 2026 FIA Technical Regulations Article 3, traditional DRS is gone. Every car now runs a full active aero system, front and rear wings that physically change their angle in real time, switching between high downforce for corners and low drag for straights. Every team has this. Ferrari's innovation goes beyond it. Their upper rear wing element can rotate nearly 180 degrees, not just open like a standard active system, but fully invert, switching from maximum downforce to a near-flat plane. The difference in aerodynamic drag between those two states is not incremental. It is fundamental. Based on data presented at the F1 Commission meeting in Bahrain, reported by The Race, Ferrari gains an estimated 6 to 7 horsepower passive drag reduction advantage on every single straight. In plain terms, less wind resistance before the active system even fully opens. That's free speed. Every lap. Every straight. The entire race. On Albert Park, a circuit with long straights, medium-speed corners, and heavy traction demands, this is absolutely worth the engineering risk. And there is a risk. The actuator mechanism that drives this rotation must complete a full cycle in under 400 milliseconds. Over a 58-lap Melbourne race, that's over 230 activation cycles minimum. Some sources project over 300 when you account for partial activations in the technical sections. If that actuator fails mid-race, downforce disappears instantly at turn entry. Corner stability is gone in a fraction of a second. The crash risk is real. That's why Ferrari has treated every byte of telemetry data from Melbourne practice sessions like classified government material. Rivals have seen hints of the numbers. They don't have the full picture. And here's where it gets interesting. Red Bull engineers at Milton Keynes have reportedly been running overnight sessions trying to reverse engineer the actuator mechanism since Bahrain. Reports suggest a Red Bull version could appear as early as the Japanese Grand Prix. Ferrari could lose their own advantage to the team trying to copy them. One more thing that other channels completely missed, the version Ferrari ran in Bahrain was almost certainly an evaluation prototype. Not race specification. They've since brought a further diffuser package to Melbourne as a supplementary rear-end upgrade. The real weapon may still be coming. Which makes this weekend even more critical than it already looks. Now, Red Bull. Day 1 of Bahrain testing, Max Verstappen recorded 344 km per hour, the highest top speed of the entire 2-week test. No car touched it for the remaining days, including Red Bull themselves. George Russell went on record, "I'm struggling to wrap my head around how they've lost 7/10 in a week." That's not confusion. That's PR warfare. Mercedes inflating Red Bull's threat to deflect from their own pace. But Autosport and Automotor UND Sport both reported independently that Red Bull deliberately dialed back engine output in week 2 due to vibration stress, the same issue hitting Aston Martin, but less severe, because Red Bull had already completed full-power dyno cycles before they ever turned a wheel in Bahrain. They weren't slow. They were protecting the engine. And then Isaac Hadjar, Red Bull's new rookie, not yet programmed by the team's PR machine, walked into the paddock in Melbourne and said, "I think we have a good race car. I'm aiming for a podium. But let's see." With a visible smirk. Every veteran driver in a competitive car gives you the same line, "We don't know, others might be faster." Hadjar didn't get that briefing. Leclerc did the exact same thing at Sauber in 2018, broke the script, let the truth out. Rookies always do. That smirk is telling you everything that Max Verstappen's careful, measured words were specifically designed to hide. Here's the factor no broadcast is covering. Not Sky. Not Channel 4. Nobody. Battery state of charge data, exactly how much hybrid energy each car is carrying at any given moment, is not being shared with broadcasters in 2026. The FIA's stated reason, under Sporting Regulations Article 5.4, to prevent energy bullying. Where a team that knows a rival is at 10% battery can deploy 100% of their own electrical power on the same straight and be completely untouchable. This is blind chess. Each team sees their own pieces. Nobody else's. At Melbourne, cars harvest up to 9 megajoules per lap under race mode. A megajoule is roughly the energy in a quarter stick of dynamite, reduced to 7 in qualifying and 8.5 in overtake mode. Based on preseason modeling by Peter Windsor and Mark Hughes, every 1 megajoule difference between two cars at the same point on Melbourne's back straight is worth 0.3 to 0.4 seconds. Per straight. Per lap. The winner of Sunday's race won't just be the driver with the fastest car. It'll be the team that manages invisible energy better than everyone else. Mercedes Petronas fuel was officially homologated Thursday morning, meaning for the first time in 2026, they arrive at full power. Ferrari's Shell fuel integration is reportedly even further developed, potentially worth an additional 5 horsepower in combustion energy density. Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes. 3 teams. 3 different energy weapons. 1 race. Whose energy advantage matters more? Tell me in the comments, I'll pin the most interesting answer. Now, I want to be straight with you. Because that's what this channel is about. Not everything is as catastrophic for Aston Martin as the headlines suggest. Newey himself rates the chassis as probably 5th best on the grid right now. The floor, the diffuser, the underbody airflow, he believes it's genuine. He's built structures before that looked broken and won championships. One credible engineering perspective, the Honda vibration should have appeared on a dyno before track running. The fact it only manifested under real-world track loads strongly suggests chassis resonance is amplifying what would otherwise be a manageable engine vibration. That's a chassis-level problem, and Newey has solved resonance problems his entire career. Historical precedent, Renault in 2003 arrived with an engine that overheated on Michelin compounds. Fixed by race 7. Red Bull in 2022 had porpoising so severe Perez said it felt physically traumatic. 4 races later they won the championship. Mid-season F1 recoveries are not miracles. They're the rule. On Ferrari, some engineers privately believe the Melbourne package is a demonstration, not the real weapon. The full specification may arrive at a circuit where Ferrari judges the track characteristics to be even more favorable. And on Red Bull, genuine reliability risk remains. Full power has not been consistently shown. The route to a Melbourne podium is not a free run for Verstappen. Every single time Formula One rewrites the regulations, one team understands the rulebook better than everyone else, and wins everything. Not always in race 1. But always, decisively, by mid-season. Brawn GP 2009, nobody had heard of them. They arrived at this very race, the Australian Grand Prix, with a double diffuser worth 1.5 seconds a lap. They won 8 races and the championship in their first and only season. Mercedes 2014, a hybrid architecture so thermally efficient that rivals literally could not understand the telemetry numbers for months. 7 consecutive constructors' titles. Mercedes 2020, dual-axis steering. A concept buried in the regulations for years, exploited at Barcelona while Ferrari and Red Bull watched, stunned, with no way to replicate it in season. Now it's 2026. Ferrari has built a rotating active aero concept that no rival had prepared at Melbourne. They understood something in the rulebook that others are now being forced to copy from behind. Is Ferrari the Brawn GP of 2026? Or will Red Bull do what they always do, find the gap, close it faster than anyone thought possible, and steal the concept before Ferrari can build a championship lead? That question is what makes Sunday unmissable. Here is my full call for Melbourne. Based on everything we've covered. Checkered flag race, Australian GP. Ferrari wins, not because of the rotating element alone. Because their fuel integration advantage of approximately 5 horsepower, combined with rear-end platform stability, gives Hamilton and Leclerc an edge in the heavy braking zones every single lap. Leclerc P1 or P2. Hamilton P2 or P3. Red Bull, Verstappen top 4. Component preservation will cap their ceiling. Verstappen P3, P4. Hadjar P5, P8. Mercedes, genuine dark horse. Antonelli said Thursday, and I quote, "It's time to reveal the real potential of the car." If Sunday validates that statement, top 3. Russell P2, P4. Antonelli P4, P6. Aston Martin, 29 seconds off the pace after 30 minutes in FP1. Alonso completed 0 laps. This is not a midfield team this weekend. This is a team fighting to get to lap 58. Alonso/Stroll, points extremely unlikely. If Honda isolates the vibration source within Michael Schmidt's projected 2-month window, and Newey's aerodynamic platform is genuinely 5th best on the grid right now, Aston Martin could be P3 in the constructors' standings by mid-season. McLaren Honda 2015. Alonso called their engine a GP2 engine on team radio. The most embarrassing season in Honda's history. 4 years of refinement later, Red Bull Honda won the 2021 World Championship. Honda's development curve is slow to ignite. But when it ignites, it is explosive. Do not write them off. Look, that's the real picture from Melbourne this weekend. Not the press releases. Not the team statements. The actual engineering reality behind every headline. Ferrari holding something back. Red Bull hiding their pace. Aston Martin fighting for survival. And an energy war happening on screens you will never see on the broadcast. If you watched this far, you already know this channel is different. We don't guess. We don't overhype. We go to the sources, read the regulations, and give you the story that actually matters. Subscribe now if that's what you want more of, and hit the bell, because race day coverage drops Sunday morning and you do not want to miss it. One last thing before you go. Whose side are you on? Ferrari, protecting their invention. Red Bull, trying to steal it. Or Aston Martin, just trying to survive the weekend with their drivers in one piece. Drop your Melbourne GP winner below. I'll pin the best prediction after Sunday's race and we'll settle it together. Race day. Let's go.